The chains of arrogance. The Xorath Dominion had ruled the stars for over 1,000 years. Their fleets cut across the galaxy like blades, their armies burning worlds into ash. They were conquerors without equal, and in their eyes, every new species they encountered was the same: weak, frightened, easily broken into servitude. Earth had been no different. When the Dominion fleet descended, the skies above human cities tore open with fire. Nations tried to resist, but their weapons were nothing compared to plasma bombardments and orbital strikes. Millions died within days. The survivors were taken in chains, hauled across the void like livestock. Among them was Captain Elias Kane. Once, he had worn the uniform of an Earth defense officer. Now he wore rags. A shock collar clung to his neck, a symbol of humiliation. He had been taken to Vrax 7, a mining world stripped bare by endless exploitation. Here, humans were forced to dig for ore in toxic tunnels, breathing poison-laced air, while alien overseers barked orders. The Xorath guards didn't fear them. How could they? Humans were fragile, hairless primates, bones too brittle, muscles too soft. To the Dominion, they were nothing but labor stock. But Kane's eyes burned with a different fire. He swung his pickaxe against the rock, sweat dripping down his brow, lungs straining against the fumes. Around him, dozens of humans coughed and hacked, some collapsing where they stood. The guards laughed as shock prods lashed out, forcing the fallen back to their feet. Faster, animals, one snarled in its guttural tongue. Its scales glistened under the artificial lights, its clawed hand wrapped tightly around a plasma rifle. Kane's hands tightened on the pickaxe, knuckles white. Every fiber of his being screamed to strike, to drive the steel into the alien's throat. But he held back. Not yet. He forced his breathing steady, eyes scanning, mind memorizing. Guard rotations, weapon holsters, the positioning of cameras. Every detail mattered. Every detail was a step toward freedom. That night, in the barracks, the air was thick with despair. Humans huddled on cold metal floors, skin bruised, eyes hollow. Some whispered prayers. Others stared blankly, broken. Kane knelt beside a young woman, barely more than a girl, who had been coughing blood earlier. She clutched a torn photograph of her family, the edges frayed from constant handling. "They'll kill us all," she whispered. "We can't fight them. We're nothing to them." Kane looked at her, his voice low but steady. "They think we're nothing because they don't understand us. But that's their mistake. Humanity doesn't break, we endure. And when we fight back, we don't stop until we win." A few heads lifted. The defeated eyes of the captives flickered with something faint. Hope. The next day, Commander Virak the Cruel inspected the mines. He was taller than the guards, armored in obsidian plates, his crest of horns marking him as nobility. He walked with disdain, as though even the air offended him. His gaze settled on Kane. "This one resists," a guard reported. "He does not cower as the others do." Virak's lips curled into a cruel smile. He stepped closer, claws tapping against Kane's collar. "Defiance in cattle is amusing," he hissed. "Break him slowly. I want to hear him scream." The guard shoved Kane to his knees and activated the collar. Agonizing electricity ripped through his body. His muscles seized, his vision blurred. The other humans cried out in horror. But Kane did not scream. He bit down until blood filled his mouth, his body convulsing. Yet he forced his eyes to stay locked on Virak's. His silence was louder than any cry of pain. When the current stopped, Kane collapsed, smoke rising from his skin. Virak sneered in disappointment. "He will break," the commander said. "They always do." As the aliens left, Kane dragged himself up onto one knee, chest heaving. His body trembled, but his spirit remained unshaken. He turned his head to the watching humans and rasped. "They think we're cattle. They think chains will hold us. But they don't know who we are." That night, as the humans settled into restless sleep, Kane whispered to those closest to him. "I've studied them," he said. "Their arrogance blinds them. They leave gaps in their patrols. Their tech can be tampered with. And these mines, they're filled with things we can use. Tools, materials, weapons waiting to be made." A man shook his head. Even if we fight back, what chance do we have? We're outnumbered, outgunned. Kane's eyes hardened. Maybe, but history isn't written by numbers. It's written by those who refuse to kneel. He glanced around the barracks, lowering his voice to a vow. They made one mistake. One fatal mistake. They took a human prisoner. And in doing so, they woke something they can't control. The fire in his words spread like a spark through dry kindling. In the shadows of their prison, the first embers of rebellion began to burn. Sparks in the dark. The days and the minds blurred into each other. Heat, sweat, and the stink of alien cruelty. Yet beneath the misery, something new had begun to stir. The humans no longer moved like scattered individuals. They shared glances, subtle nods, a flicker of awareness that had not been there before. And at the center of it all was Captain Elias Kane. He worked the tunnels with the same forced labor as the others, swinging his pickaxe against the stone. But each strike was calculated. He loosened rocks where alien sensors couldn't see, palmed sharp fragments, and slipped them into hidden cracks. Scraps of metal from broken machinery found their way into his hands. To the guards, it was nothing. To Kane, it was the foundation of a rebellion. At night, in the dark corners of the barracks, Kane whispered to those who still had the will to listen. He taught them the silent gestures of military hand signals. He showed them how to stand in formation, how to move as a unit. Discipline, he told them quietly, is what turns frightened prisoners into soldiers. The younger ones soaked up his words. The older ones, weary and broken, found themselves drawn back into something they thought they had lost: purpose. The Xorath guards never noticed. Why would they? They had conquered countless species, all of them crumbling under fear and despair. The thought that humans might be different never crossed their minds. Instead, they jeered as they walked past the prisoners. They mocked the weakness of their frames, laughed at the coughs racking their bodies from the toxic fumes. Soft flesh, one sneered, kicking a man who stumbled. Barely fit to breathe. The laughter echoed, but Kane only listened in silence, eyes narrowing. He was counting patrols again. 3 guards here, 2 over there. A change of shift every 40 minutes. Sloppy, predictable, exactly what he needed. The first spark came 3 weeks later. It began in a side tunnel where the lighting was dim, shadows long. A Xorath patrol of 2 moved through the shafts, their rifles slung lazily. They were bored, inattentive. They never saw the humans waiting. Kane gave the signal, a sharp flick of his fingers, and 6 humans moved at once. One swung a rock into the alien skull. Another drove a sharpened shard of metal into the back of a knee joint. The patrol collapsed under a flurry of blows, their guttural cries silenced by human fists and rage. When it was over, 2 dead aliens lay on the ground. Their weapons, still warm, were clutched in human hands. The humans stared at them in stunned silence. For the first time since their capture, the impossible had happened. They had killed their captors. One man's voice shook as he whispered, "We can fight them. We can actually fight them." Kane's reply was cold, steady. "No, we don't fight them. We hunt them." From that night on, the rebellion grew teeth. Stolen alien blades became tools of silent assassinations. Mining drones, hacked with Kane's stolen components, turned against their masters in sudden bursts of violence. Ventilation shafts carried whispered messages from one section of the mine to another. It has begun. We're not slaves. We are soldiers. The guards started to notice. Patrols failed to return. Supply crates went missing. Weapons vanished from armories. At first, they laughed. "The humans are killing themselves in the tunnels," they said. "Let them." But soon, laughter turned to unease. The bodies of guards were found stripped of weapons, hidden in shadows. The humans were not dying off. They were organizing. Then Kane struck louder. He led a raid on a power relay station inside the mines, where only a handful of guards were posted. The attack was swift, brutal. Pickaxes, stolen rifles, and improvised explosives made from fuel cells. The station went up in flames, and with it, half the mining complex plunged into darkness. As the alarms blared, Kane seized a working comms unit. He tuned it to the Dominion frequency, his voice carrying across the entire colony. "This is humanity," he growled, each word dripping with defiance. "You thought us weak. You thought us broken. But you made a mistake. You enslaved the wrong species." For the first time, the Xorath garrison felt a sliver of fear. The reprisals came fast. Commander Virak ordered executions, 10 humans lined up and slaughtered as an example. But instead of cowing the others, it ignited them further. Every death was fuel. Every scream was a promise of vengeance. The guards tightened their patrols, but every day more of them failed to return. The tunnels whispered with stories. A patrol dragged into the dark. A barracks set ablaze. A guard found hanging upside down, throat slit. And through it all, one name spread like wildfire. Kane. In the barracks one night, after a successful ambush, Kane stood before the survivors. Their faces were smeared with dirt and blood, but their eyes were alive now, sharp and unbroken. "They don't understand us," Kane said. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of iron. "Every species they've conquered before fell because they accepted chains. But humans? We don't kneel. We fight until there's nothing left standing." He held up a captured alien rifle, its red energy core glowing like fire in his hands. "This is just the beginning." The barracks filled with quiet murmurs, then a rising roar. Humans pounding fists against the metal floor, voices lifted in raw defiance. The sparks were no longer hidden. They had become flame, and flame, Kane knew, would soon become an inferno. The uprising spreads. The minds of Rax, 7 no longer echoed with the steady rhythm of forced labor. Now, they trembled with the chaos of rebellion. The first attacks had been whispers in the dark, sudden stabs of violence hidden in shadows. But now, the humans struck openly. Patrols vanished daily. Explosions rocked power lines and storage depots. Fires burned unchecked in the tunnels. And the Xorath Dominion was afraid. Commander Virak the Cruel stormed through the command center, his claws scraping against the floor plates. His eyes blazed as he slammed a fist onto the hollow table, where reports of missing squads and destroyed outposts flickered like a mockery. "Humans," he snarled. "Humans are doing this." His lieutenants shifted uneasily. One tried to speak. They were meant to be docile. "Lord Virak. A fragile species, easily contained." "Fragile?" Virak roared, seizing the officer by the throat. "Do these reports look like fragility to you?" He threw the officer aside. Silence followed. Fear had begun to spread, not just among the soldiers, but in their leader. In the mines, Kane moved like a ghost. His people were no longer prisoners, they were soldiers. With every raid, they seized alien rifles, armor plating, explosives. With every victory, they grew sharper, deadlier. Kane had taught them how to use the tunnels as weapons. He mapped routes that only humans, with their smaller frames, could crawl through. He redirected toxic gas into guard barracks, watching as the reptilian overseers choked and died in the fumes they had once forced humans to breathe. The Dominion had thought humans were fragile. Kane was proving them wrong every day. One night, under the dim glow of emergency lamps, Kane gathered his closest fighters. 12 men and women knelt around him, their faces smeared with soot, their eyes burning with resolve. Kane spread a stolen datapad before them, its map of the colony glowing. "This," he said, pointing to the central tower, "is where they control the mines. Communications, security, power. Everything flows from here." He looked at them each in turn. "We take this, and we don't just cripple their grip. We show them that humans are not prey. We're predators." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. "How?" one asked. "They'll have a full garrison there." Kane's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then we'll give them a war they'll never forget." The assault began at dawn. It started with fire. Sabotaged fuel lines ignited in a massive explosion, sending black smoke billowing into the sky. As the alarm screamed, humans emerged from the tunnels like shadows, hurling stolen grenades and unleashing bursts of plasma fire. The guards reeled, unprepared for the fury that fell upon them. Kane led from the front, rifle blazing, his movements precise and merciless. Beside him, miners swung makeshift spears, mothers wielded alien pistols, even children carried stolen knives. Every human fought with desperation sharpened into rage. The corridors of the colony became battlefields. Humans ambushed patrols from side shafts, collapsed tunnels on armored convoys, and turned the very rock of Vrax, 7 against its masters. Inside the control tower, Commander Virak barked orders, his voice cracking with fury. "Hold the lines. Crush them. They are cattle with stolen guns." But his soldiers faltered. The humans were no longer just prisoners. They were an enemy that fought with the savagery of cornered beasts. And worse, they fought with cunning. A team of humans hacked into the security systems, blinding cameras and opening sealed doors. Another group flooded corridors with poisonous fumes. The Dominion soldiers began to fall back, step by step, until the rebels stormed the base itself. At the heart of the chaos, Kane fought his way to the command chamber. The doors blew open under a stolen charge, and he stepped through smoke and flame to face Virak. The commander stood tall, armored in obsidian plates, his plasma sword crackling with deadly energy. His eyes burned with hatred. "You dare?" Virak spat. "A fragile mammal dares to defy the Dominion." Kane raised his rifle, his voice steady as iron. "No, a human does." They clashed. Virak swung with brute strength, his blades searing through consoles and walls. But Kane moved with speed, ducking under strikes, firing bursts that scorched armor. The alien laughed, confident in his power, until Kane closed the distance. With a roar, Kane drove the butt of his rifle into Virak's jaw, then tore the plasma sword from his grasp. In the same motion, he rammed the blade into the alien's chest. Virak's eyes widened in disbelief as the weapon burned through him. His last breath rattled out in a hiss. Kane yanked the blade free and let the commander's body fall. Silence followed. Then the humans cheered, their voices rising like thunder. The command chamber, once a place of chains and control, now echoed with the roar of freedom. Kane turned to the comms console. He activated it, broadcasting across the entire colony and beyond to the Dominion channels. His voice was low, steady, and filled with fury. "You thought humanity was weak. You thought chains could hold us. But we are not prey. We are not cattle. We are human, and we will burn your empire to ash." Across Vrax, 7, humans rose with renewed fury. Across the stars, the Xorath Dominion heard those words, and for the first time in centuries, they felt fear. The uprising had become a war. Humanity's fury unleashed. The control tower of Vrax, 7, still smoldered. Fires crackled through shattered walls. Consoles sparked and hissed, and alien corpses lay strewn across the floor. The air reeked of ozone, ash, and blood. But for the first time since their capture, the humans were free. Elias Kane stood at the center of the chamber, plasma's sword still in his hand, Virak's corpse cooling at his feet. Around him, survivors gathered. Miners, farmers, soldiers, mothers, and children. None of them had chosen this war, but all of them had become warriors. Their cheers shook the walls. Yet Kane's face was grim. He knew this was only the beginning. "They'll come for us," one man said, clutching a stolen rifle. "The Dominion won't let this go." Kane nodded. "They'll send fleets, but we won't wait to be slaughtered. We take the fight to them, starting with their ships in orbit." The plan was reckless. It was impossible, and it worked. Using stolen codes ripped from the control systems, the humans infiltrated the landing bays. Guards tried to resist, but they were overwhelmed by a tide of fury. Docked transports were seized, their alien pilots dragged from cockpits and killed. Within hours, the enslaved had turned their prison into a launch point. For the first time, humanity held the stars in their hands. Kane stood on the bridge of a captured corvette, his hand resting on the railing as the stars stretched before him. Around him, humans manned alien consoles, their fingers fumbling but determined. A young boy read data from screens. A former engineer rerouted power, and a woman who had been a schoolteacher now stood as gunner. It was crude, It was messy, but it worked. "Bring us about," Kane ordered. "Target the Dominion warship in orbit." The humans looked at him, uncertain. That ship was massive, armored, armed with weapons that could tear them apart in seconds. But Kane's eyes burned with certainty. We didn't come this far to run. The battle above Rax 7 was chaos. The Dominion cruiser unleashed torrents of plasma, but Kane's corvette ducked and weaved, piloted with desperate precision. Other captured transports swarmed like gnats, ramming into fighter bays, disgorging humans with stolen weapons. Explosions bloomed across the black. Kane's voice thundered across the comms. "Remember what they did to us. Remember the chains. Today we show them what it means to enslave humanity." The humans roared in reply, their defiance echoing through the void. In the end, it wasn't numbers that won the fight. It was will. The humans fought with the ferocity of a species that had tasted chains and vowed never again. And when the Dominion cruiser finally erupted in a fireball of broken steel, the cheers of humanity shook the stars. Word spread quickly. The escape from Vrax 7 was not just a victory, it was a legend. Across the galaxy, whispers spread of humans who had risen from slavery and slaughtered their masters. Species long cowed under Dominion rule listened to the tales with new ears. If the fragile creatures from a forgotten backwater world could rise, then perhaps they could too. The spark of rebellion leapt from system to system. In the Dominion council chambers, chaos reigned. Alien nobles shouted over one another, their voices trembling with panic. "It is a minor species," one insisted. "Crush them quickly and silence this nonsense." But others shook their heads. "You don't understand. They fight differently. They fight like nothing we've seen. If they spread..." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion felt the shadow of fear. Back aboard the stolen corvette, Kane gazed out at the stars. The survivors of Rax 7 filled the decks around him, their faces hard, their eyes alight with newfound purpose. A woman approached him. "What now? Do we run?" "Hi." Kane shook his head. "No. Earth is broken. The Dominion will come for what's left. Hiding won't save us." "Then what do we do?" He turned to her, voice firm, unwavering. "We fight. Not just for us, for every world they've enslaved. Humanity will not be remembered as victims. We'll be remembered as the ones who lit the fire." The humans painted their corvette with Earth's flag, bold against the black hull. It was more than a ship now. It was a symbol. Kane stood before his people, his words carrying through the corridors. "They enslaved us. They tortured us. They thought us weak. But they made a fatal mistake. They gave us a reason to fight. And now we will bring fury to their empire." The humans roared, a sound of defiance that shook the air. Kane lifted the plasma, sword high, its glow reflected in 100 determined eyes. "From this day forward," he declared, "humanity does not kneel. We rise, and we burn." The corvette's engines ignited, tearing away from the broken world below. It was the first ship of a human fleet that did not yet exist, but would soon. Behind them, Vrax 7 smoldered in rebellion. Ahead of them stretched the endless night of the galaxy, filled with enemies waiting to be hunted. Elias Kane looked into the void, and his voice was quiet, almost reverent. "They thought they enslaved us, but all they did was awaken us. And humanity's fury, once kindled, would never be extinguished."